Hey, welcome back. Now, this is the problem we're going to solve in this video. Now, so far we've got a moving character and we can run around in the world and everything looks fine. But there's an issue when we run up past the map bounds. You'll see that we go off the map and we see the edges and we should never be able to go past these bounds. So in this video, we're going to take care of that. We're going to prevent the character from running off the map by checking the map bounds, and then we're going to create a function to undo the character's movement if the character has walked off the map bounds in any given frame. Let's get started. Now, our character's world pause starts off at 0, and we can think of this as the upper left corner of the screen. Let's say we move down and to the right, and world pause becomes 1, 1. Well, of course, we know that our map pause is derived from world pause, so map pause is going to be -1, -1. So if we're moving in this direction, everything is fine. But what happens if we move the other way? Let's say world pause now becomes -1, -1. Well, we're now off the map, and so there has to be some sort of bounds that will prevent us from going in that direction. And we see that we have this problem when world pause becomes negative. So if world pause.x becomes less than 0, we have a problem. And likewise, when world pause.y becomes less than 0, we also have a problem. So these are going to be two conditions to keep in mind. Now, what happens when the character moves all the way down to the bottom right corner of the map? We have to stop before we go over these edges as well. So if we move down past the bottom right corner like this, then we also have a problem. This will happen when worldpause.x plus the window width becomes greater than our map width. We also see that we go over the edge when worldpause.y plus window height becomes greater than the map height. So these are also two conditions that we must keep in mind. So we know that we're hitting the map bounds if worldpause.x is less than 0, if worldpause.y is less than 0, and if worldpause.x plus the width of the window is greater than map width, and if worldpause.y plus the window height is greater than map height. We want to undo the movement for the character if any of these happen. So this is going to be an OR condition. Because if any one of these is true, regardless of whether any of the other conditions are true, we still want to undo the character's movement for that frame. Let's see how this condition looks in C++. Okay, so we're going to scroll down into the while loop, and we need to check this every single frame. Now, we're going to check to see if we're hitting the map bounds after the tick function, because the tick function handles movement. So in the tick function, we're setting world pause. Now, after that, if we're hitting the map bounds, that's when we need to undo the change that we made to world pause. So this will be an if statement. We need to check to see if the knight's worldpause.x is less than 0. So we're going to get knight.getWorldPause. That's that public function we created that returns world pause. Now we're going to get the x component, so get worldpause.x, and we're going to check to see if this is less than 0.f. Now we're going to use the OR operator because this conditional is going to have multiple parts to it. For the next part, we're going to check to see if the worldpause.y is less than 0 as well. So we're going to say knight.getWorldPause.y is less than 0.f. Now we'll use the OR again because we also need to check to see if world position has gone past the right bounds and the lower bounds of the map. So let's see if you can type the next part of this conditional. Check to see if the knight has gone too far to the right. Okay, so we're going to say knight.getWorldPause.x, and we also need to add the window width. So we're going to say plus window width, and we're going to see if this is greater than the width of the map. Now remember, the map texture is called map, so we can get the width of the map with map.width. Now kudos to you if you remembered that we're drawing the map and scaling it by a factor of 4. So this needs to be multiplied by 4 here. Okay, excellent. Now let's add another OR, and now we're going to check to see if we've crossed over the lower bounds of the map. So see if you can type this final line of the conditional. So it's going to be night.getWorldPause.y plus window height. And we're going to see if this is greater than map.height, and again, we have to multiply by 4.0. Now we can finally place our if statement body. Now we're typing this magical number 4.0 wherever we're using the map dimensions, and it's safer if we just use a single variable for this. That way, if we ever need to change it, we don't have to change every single location in the code, we just change the variable itself. So let's scroll all the way up to where we have our map texture and our map pause, and let's create another variable. This will be a const float, and we'll call this map scale. And we can initialize it to 4.0f with braced initialization. And now we can use map scale instead of the hard-coded 4.0. So let's go ahead and replace 4.0 here in draw texture X, and we'll also replace it here in our conditional for checking the map bounds. All right, now finally, let's add a comment here so we know exactly what it is we're doing, and we're going to say check map bounds. Excellent. So now we're checking to see if we're hitting the map bounds. If we are, we need to undo the knight's movement. And we can do that by storing the world pause value from last frame. If we know the value of world pause last frame, then if we're hitting the map bounds, then we can undo the movement by setting world pause equal to the value of world pause last frame. So let's say world pause is 0, 0, and we move down and to the right. Well, we know that world pause last frame was 0, 0, even if world pause this frame might be -1, -1. So if we set world pause equal to the world pause last frame, then we're back at 0, 0, and this all happened in the space of a single frame. So when the time comes to draw the map, it's like the character never moved at all. So your challenge is to create the ability to undo the character's movement. In the character class, create a world pause last frame float variable. Put this in the private section. Set this variable equal to the value of world pause at the top of the tick function before anything else is done. That way, every single frame, we're storing our world pause vector into world pause last frame. Next, create a function called undo movement. It's going to be void and has no input parameters. Create this function in the character class in the header file, make it public, and define it in the CPP file. In this function, simply set world pause equal to world pause last frame. Then you can call this undo movement function in the if statement we just created. Pause the video and do this now. So here's our character.h file, and we're going to add a new vector2 called world pause last frame. Let's add this just under world pause. So we'll say vector2 world pause last frame. Now notice we have uninitialized variables here, so let's go ahead and give world pause last frame as well as screen pause and world pause braced initialization so they're initialized. Now we need to set world pause last frame. Let's do this in tick. So here in character.cpp, we're going to go up to the top of tick. Here in tick, we're going to set world pause last frame to world pause. Now we need to create a function for undoing the character movement. Here in character.h, we'll go ahead and declare a new function here in the public section. It'll be void, and we'll call it undo movement. Now let's define this in character.cpp. So down here at the bottom, we'll say void character undo movement. Now we have the fully qualified function name. Let's give this a function body. So we're going to set world pause to the value of world pause last frame. All right, so now we can call this in main.cpp. If we reach the inside of this if statement, then that means we've gone past the bounds and we need to undo the movement. So we're going to say knight.undo movement. Let's go ahead and test this out. So we'll go to run and start debugging. And here's our knight, and we can run down into the right, but if we go up into the left, we'll see that we can't go any further, and that's because we're calling undo movement before the frame is over. Awesome job! So in summary, we are checking the map bounds, and if we've gone past the map bounds, we simply undo movement with our new undo movement function that we've added to the character class. Now we have limitations in our map, and we can't just run off the edge. Great job. I'll see you in the next video.